The Okafor family was renowned throughout Lagos for their immense wealth, power, and influence. Their name alone could open doors long before they ever arrived. Okafor Holdings owned luxury hotels, secured lucrative oil contracts, managed shipping businesses, and held vast estates across Nigeria and beyond. Whenever Chief Okafor entered a room, people instinctively bowed their heads in respect. Politicians sought his favors. Businessmen dreaded disappointing him, and his only son, Dominic Okafor, was expected to carry the family empire forward. At just 32, Dominic was handsome, composed, and well educated from years abroad. He already held a seat on the company's board. Women pursued him relentlessly, models, socialites, daughters of influential senators and actresses alike. Every week, gossip blogs buzzed with rumors about his latest romantic interest. Yet Dominic paid them little attention. Deep down, he felt weary of insincere smiles, conversations that revolved only around money and status, and women who tried to charm his parents rather than connect with his heart. One evening, during a lavish charity gala on Victoria Island, Dominic stood near the balcony, quietly loosening his tie as the laughter of wealthy guests echoed behind him. His mother approached, champagne glass in hand. "You disappeared again." "I just needed some air," he replied. "You should be mingling." "Senator Balogun's daughter keeps asking about you," Dominic sighed softly. "She's beautiful, educated, well-connected. Exactly the kind of woman this family expects." He gazed out over the glittering city lights. "What if I want something different?" His mother laughed lightly. "Love is wonderful, Dominic, but marriage is strategy." Those words lingered in his mind long after the night ended. Marriage is strategy, not love, not companionship, but strategy. That night, Dominic drove through the streets of Lagos alone. No driver, no security detail, just the quiet hum of the engine and the glow of headlights cutting through the darkness. A gentle rain had begun to fall, and traffic slowed to a crawl near YABA. As he waited at an intersection, he noticed a small crowd gathered by the roadside. A young woman knelt beside an elderly man who had collapsed near a bus stop. Most bystanders simply watched, some even recording the scene on their phones, but she was actively helping him. Her white blouse was drenched from the rain, her hair clinging to her face, yet she remained calm, holding the man upright and calling out to passing Keek riders for assistance. "Please, help me get him to the clinic." No one stopped. Dominic watched for a moment, then quickly pulled over. He ran across the wet road. "What happened?" "I think he fainted," the young woman said breathlessly. Together, they carefully lifted the old man into Dominic's car. She sat in the back, cradling him gently while Dominic drove to a nearby clinic. For nearly an hour, she stayed by the stranger's side, assisting the nurses, filling out forms, and soothing the frightened man once he regained consciousness. Only when everything had settled did Dominic finally take a proper look at her. She appeared exhausted, yet there was a peaceful strength about her. "You stayed the entire time for someone you didn't even know," he said softly. She looked surprised by the observation. "Should I have left him there?" Dominic smiled faintly. "No, I suppose not." She wiped a trace of rainwater from her forehead. "I'm Lila, Dominic." She nodded politely, showing no spark of recognition, no excitement, no lingering stare. Most people in Lagos would have recognized the Okafor name instantly, but she clearly had no idea who he was. And oddly, Dominic found that refreshing. Outside the clinic, the rain continued to pour. "You'll have trouble finding transport now," he said. "I'll manage. I can drive you. You don't have to." "I know." After a brief pause, she quietly accepted the offer and got into the car. During the drive, Dominic learned that she taught literature at a small private school and spent her evenings helping her aunt at a local bookstore. Her life was simple, her routine steady. She spoke without affectation, without any attempt to impress him. When they reached her street, Dominic took in the surroundings: old buildings, narrow lanes, small shops, children playing barefoot in the rain. It was the kind of neighborhood his family would never set foot in. "Thank you," Lila said softly as she opened the door. Then she hesitated. "You're different." He blinked. "What do you mean?" Most rich people wouldn't have stopped before he could respond. She offered a gentle smile and disappeared into the rainy night for the first time in years. Dominic could not stop thinking about her dot in the weeks that followed. Everything began to change. Dominic found excuses to visit the bookstore. At first, he pretended to browse the shelves. Then he started purchasing books he didn't truly need, simply for the chance to talk to her while she arranged the displays. She laughed easily, warm, genuine, unforced. One evening, as they closed the shop together, Dominic rolled up his sleeves and helped carry heavy cartons inside. Lila watched him with curiosity. "You don't look like someone who does this sort of work often," he chuckled quietly. "You'd be surprised. You speak differently, too." "How so?" "Like someone carrying a heavy burden." The words struck him deeply, because they were true. Around Lila, Dominic felt like an ordinary man, not the heir to a vast empire, not a strategic asset in his family's business, just a man. And slowly, inevitably, he fell in love. When he finally told his parents, their reaction was precisely what he had feared: a teacher. His mother repeated slowly, "Yes." His father removed his glasses with deliberate calm. "From what family?" "She lives in Yaba." Silence settled over the dining room like a heavy fog. Then his mother laughed softly. "You're joking." "I'm serious." His father leaned back in his chair. "You want to bring a girl from the roadside into this family?" "She's intelligent, kind, and honest." His mother's voice grew sharp. "Dominic, women like that see wealthy men as their ticket to a better life. She's no different. All poor girls play humble until money is on the table." Dominic rose to his feet at once. "Don't speak about her that way." But his father's expression remained icy. "You are an Okafor. You do not marry for emotion." Dominic left the mansion that night, his heart burning with anger. Lila knew nothing of this. She only sensed that Dominic had grown distant, quieter, more preoccupied. One evening, as they shared roasted corn by the roadside after work, she asked gently, "Did something happen?" Dominic stared straight ahead. "My parents." Her smile faded. "They don't approve." He said nothing, but that silence was answer enough. Lila nodded slowly. "I understand." "No, you don't." "They think you're after my money." She smiled sadly. "Because that's what rich families always assume." Dominic took her hand gently. "I don't care what they think, but deep inside." He knew the road ahead would be difficult. Soon after, Mrs. Okafor made her move. Without informing her son, she invited Lila to lunch. Though Lila nearly declined, she agreed in the hope of finding some peace between them. The restaurant was one of the most exclusive in Lagos, sparkling with crystal glassware, soft piano music, and an atmosphere of refined luxury. Lila felt immediately out of place in her simple dress when Mrs. Okafor arrived, adorned in diamonds and an air of cool elegance. She smiled politely, though her eyes held clear judgment. "So, you're Lila?" "Yes, Mrs. Okafor studied her quietly. "You're beautiful." "Thank you." "And clever, I assume." "I try my best." The food arrived, but Mrs. Okafor barely touched her plate. Instead, she spoke with careful precision. "My son is emotional." Lila remained silent. "He believes this relationship is love, still." Lila said nothing. "But marriage into this family is different." Lila met her gaze directly. What are you trying to say? Mrs. Okafor smiled thinly. I'm saying this life may destroy you. I didn't ask for wealth, but you accepted it. I accepted Dominic, Mrs. Okafor leaned in slightly. You may fool him. You cannot fool me. The word stuck. But Lila held her composure. Then Mrs. Okafor placed an envelope on the table. Lila stared at it. What is that? Enough money to start over somewhere else. The restaurant seemed to grow quieter. Lila looked at the envelope for several long seconds, then slowly pushed it back across the table. I love your son, Mrs. Okafor's face darkened. You're making a mistake. No, Lila whispered. I think you are. She stood and walked away with quiet dignity. That evening, Dominic found Lila sitting outside the bookstore, her eyes weary. What happened? She tried to smile. Your mother invited me to lunch. He froze. She did what? Lila looked away. She offered me money to leave. Rage surged through him. He drove straight home and stormed into the mansion. You humiliated her. His mother remained calm. I was protecting this family. She's not a criminal. She's beneath your world. His father finally spoke. Enough shouting. No, not enough. Dominic shot back. His father's voice turned colder still. You were thinking with your emotions again. Dominic stared at them both. She has more heart than this entire house. Then he walked out, for the first time in years. Chief Okafor looked truly angry at his son. As the days went by, the tension only grew worse. Then one evening, Chief Okafor announced a grand family dinner. Politicians, business partners, and important families were invited, and he insisted Dominic must attend. To Dominic's surprise, Lila said she would go with him. You don't have to, he told her. I'm not ashamed of who I am. That night, she wore a simple emerald green gown, elegant in its simplicity, with no flashy jewelry, only quiet grace. When Dominic saw her, he smiled softly. You look beautiful. She laughed nervously. I feel like I'm walking into battle. You kind of are. The Okafor mansion gleamed with wealth. Luxury cars lined the compound, and security guards stood at every entrance. Inside, wealthy guests laughed beneath soft music. The moment Dominic and Lila entered, heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. That's the girl. She's so ordinary. She's actually quite pretty. She looks poor, though. Mrs. Okafor forced a smile while greeting guests, but disappointment shadowed her eyes throughout dinner. Lila remained composed despite the palpable tension. She answered questions politely and smiled respectfully, even when faced with thinly veiled insults. So, which company does your father own? My father passed away. An awkward silence followed. Oh, another woman smiled thinly. And your mother? She sells fabrics. Tiny smirks flickered across the table. Then Senator Balagun's wife asked loudly, So, how exactly did you meet Dominic? Before Lila could answer, Mrs. Okafor interjected casually. Love can happen anywhere. The table chuckled lightly. Dominic clenched his jaw, but Lila touched his hand under the table, silently urging him to stay calm. The humiliation reached its peak when a wealthy young woman named Sabrina rose, wineglass in hand. Beautiful and arrogant, she was the daughter of a family friend. She smiled directly at Lila. So, Lila, what fork do you normally use at home? Some guests laughed immediately. Dominic stood at once. Enough, but Lila surprised everyone. She smiled softly. The same kind used by decent human beings. The table fell silent. Sabrina's smile faded. Lila continued calmly. Money should make people comfortable, not cruel. Even Chief Okafor looked slightly taken aback. Yet the evening only deteriorated further. Later, during dessert, a waitress accidentally spilled juice near Lila's seat. Mrs. Okafor sighed loudly. This is exactly why people should remain in the environments they understand. The insult was now unmistakable. The room went still. Dominic slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. But before anyone could react, Lila rose slowly. Her eyes glistened, not with anger, but with quiet disappointment. She looked around the grand dining hall and spoke with steady grace. You all think money makes you important, but kindness matters more. No one moved. My mother raised me to respect people regardless of their status. She glanced toward Mrs. Okafor. Unfortunately, not everyone was raised the same way. Gasps rippled through the room. Mrs. Okafor's face flushed with anger. How dare you? Lila only nodded politely. Thank you for dinner. Then she walked out. Dominic followed at once. That night changed everything. Somehow, the story leaked online. Blogs erupted with headlines. Unknown girl insults billionaire family. Okafor fights parents over poor girlfriend. Family war inside billionaire mansion. The pressure became unbearable. Business partners began to talk. Family friends called constantly. Chief Okafor grew furious. Then one morning, he issued Dominic an ultimatum in his office. The air felt cold and heavy. You will end this relationship. Now Chief Okafor stared hard at his son. You think love is enough to run an empire? I don't care about the empire. The words shocked even his father. You would throw away everything? Yes. Chief Okafor stood slowly. If you continue this relationship, you lose your inheritance. You lose your shares. You lose your board position. Dominic remained silent for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. Then so be it. For the first time ever, Chief Okafor struck him across the face. The sound echoed through the office. Both men froze. Pain flashed in his father's eyes, but pride held stronger. Dominic walked out without another word. Meanwhile, Lila had already made her own painful decision. She loved Dominic deeply, but she could see what the relationship was costing him: the pressure, the conflict, the pain. Slowly, she began to believe she was the cause of it all. One rainy evening, Dominic arrived at her apartment with flowers, but something felt wrong the moment he stepped inside. The room seemed emptier. Lila stood quietly near the window, her eyes red. What happened? He asked. She struggled to find her voice. Your family will never accept me. I don't care. But I do. Dominic's heart sank. No tears filled her eyes. You're losing everything because of me. I've already told you. I can't destroy your future. He took her shoulders gently. You are my future. But Lila shook her head. You deserve peace. You are my peace. The words nearly broke her, yet she whispered the ones he feared most. We should end this. Silence filled the room, broken only by the soft patter of rain against the windows. Dominic stared at her as if he couldn't breathe. No, I'm serious. You don't mean that. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. I love you enough to let you go. Dominic stepped back slowly as though struck. Without another word, he walked out into the rain, and for the first time in years, Dominic Okafor cried. As time passed, everything changed. Dominic grew colder, quieter. He stopped attending events and rarely smiled during meetings. Even business magazines noticed the shift. The heir of Okafor Holdings appeared emotionally withdrawn. Lila threw herself into work teaching, helping her mother, doing anything to avoid the pain. But she missed him constantly. Every street corner reminded her of him. Every quiet moment ached. Then one afternoon, everything changed again. Lila received devastating news. Her mother had collapsed at the market. Hospital bills began to mount immediately, far beyond what she could afford. Still, she refused to call Dominic. She worked extra shifts, sold what little she had, skipped meals, anything to save her mother. One night, exhausted after leaving the hospital, She sat alone outside, crying softly. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "You should have called me." She turned quickly. Dominic stood there holding bags of medicine, looking tired but gazing at her as if she still mattered more than anything. "How did you find me?" "You think I stopped checking on you?" Fresh tears filled her eyes. Dominic sat beside her quietly. "She'll be okay. I can't pay for everything. You won't have to. I don't want your money." He looked at her gently. "It's not my money." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "It's ours." That broke her completely. She wept into his chest while he held her tightly. For the first time in weeks, both of them finally allowed themselves to breathe again. From that night onward, Dominic stayed by her side through every hospital visit, every medication, every long night. Slowly, Lila's mother recovered. One evening after leaving the hospital, Lila looked at him quietly. "Why do you still love me after everything?" Dominic smiled softly. "Because you loved me before everything," she cried again, this time from happiness. But fate had not finished testing them. Then, Chief Okafor suffered a mild heart attack during a business meeting. The entire family panicked. News spread quickly. At the hospital, powerful men filled the waiting room, politicians, executives, security everywhere. Mrs. Okafor looked shaken for the first time in years, despite everything. Lila came quietly, without drawing attention. She brought homemade food for Mrs. Okafor, who hadn't eaten all day. At first, Mrs. Okafor refused to even look at her, but Lila stayed respectful. "Please eat something. I'm not hungry." "You need your strength, Mrs." Okafor finally looked up slowly. Lila looked exhausted herself, yet she had still come. She still cared. Hours later, doctors confirmed that Chief Okafor was stable. Relief washed over the family. That night, Mrs. Okafor sat alone in the hospital corridor. Then she spoke softly. "You still came after everything we did to you." Lila looked down quietly. "He's Dominic's father, Mrs." Okafor stared at her for a long moment. Then she finally asked the question she should have asked from the beginning. "Why do you really love my son?" Lila smiled faintly. "Because when no one is watching, he's kind." Silence filled the corridor, and slowly, something inside Mrs. Okafor began to shift. Over the following days, she watched Lila carefully, how she spoke to the nurses with politeness, how she comforted Dominic, how she treated every worker with respect. There was no performance, no manipulation, just genuine goodness. Then one evening, Mrs. Okafor overheard doctors discussing hospital payments. Her own mother still needs treatment too, and she still refused financial help, Mrs. Okafor froze. She refused. Yes, she insisted on paying gradually herself. That moment struck her hard, very hard. For the first time, Mrs. Okafor felt deeply ashamed. A few days later, Chief Okafor finally returned home, weaker and quieter, with age suddenly visible on his face. That night, his wife sat beside him in silence. Then she whispered, "I think we were wrong." Chief Okafor looked at her carefully. "She truly loves him." Silence. "She stayed here every day. She even helped me when I ignored her." Chief Okafor sighed deeply. "I only wanted to protect the family." "So did I." The room remained quiet for a long time. Then finally, Chief Okafor nodded slowly. "Maybe we forgot what truly matters." Meanwhile, Dominic knew nothing of this change of heart. He was preparing to leave the family company for good. His resignation letter sat on his desk. Board members were panicking. Investors were worried. Despite his youth, Dominic was brilliant, and the company's future depended heavily on him. On the morning he planned to submit his resignation, something unexpected happened. Chief Okafor called for a family meeting. Everyone gathered inside the mansion. Tension hung thick in the air. Dominic stood beside Lila protectively, braced for another confrontation, but instead, Chief Okafor walked slowly toward Lila and stopped directly in front of her. The room fell completely silent. Even the servants paused what they were doing. Chief Okafor looked into her eyes with care. Then he spoke quietly. "I owe you an apology." Dominic froze. Mrs. Okafor's eyes filled with tears. Chief Okafor continued, his voice steady but heavy with regret. "I judged your background before knowing your heart. You loved my son even when it brought you pain instead of comfort. You protected him, even from yourself." Dominic could hardly believe what he was hearing. Then, slowly, Chief Okafor extended his hand. "If you still wish to be part of this family, you are welcome here." Lila's eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Okafor walked over and, to everyone's surprise, embraced her gently. "I'm sorry." The room became emotional in an instant. Even Dominic struggled to find words. That night, peace finally returned to the Okafor mansion. In time, Lagos prepared for the wedding everyone had been talking about nonstop. News channels covered it daily. It was called the wedding of the year, from teacher to billionaire bride. But Lila never changed. Even surrounded by wealth, she remained simple, kind, and grounded. She still visited her old school, still helped at the bookstore, still greeted the security guards by name. Slowly, people stopped referring to her as the poor girl. They began calling her something else, the woman who changed the Okafor family on the wedding day. Sunlight bathed the magnificent garden venue in golden light. White flowers lined the aisles, and soft music drifted through the air. Important guests arrived from all over: politicians, business leaders, celebrities. But when Dominic finally saw Lila walking down the aisle, nothing else mattered. She looked breathtaking not because of diamonds or luxury, but because peace radiated from her face. Dominic's eyes filled with tears. As she reached him, Lila smiled softly. "You're crying already." He laughed quietly. "You've ruined me emotionally." Guests chuckled warmly during the vows. Dominic held her hands tightly. "You walked into my life during a storm. You loved me when power meant nothing. You reminded me that kindness matters more than status." Many guests wiped away tears. Then Lila spoke softly. "You taught me that love should feel safe." Dominic smiled through his tears. "With you, I never feel small." Even Chief Okafor looked emotional. When the priest finally said, "You may kiss the bride," applause erupted throughout the garden. Cameras flashed. Music swelled. But Dominic saw only her, the woman his family had once rejected. The woman who had changed everything. Later, during the reception, Chief Okafor stood with a glass in hand as the guests quieted. He looked toward Lila with warmth. "Today, our family gained more than a daughter. We gained humility." The crowd applauded loudly. Mrs. Okafor smiled proudly beside Lila now, a completely different woman from the cold one she had once been. And as Dominic and Lila danced slowly beneath the golden lights, the world watched a billionaire and his bride. But what truly mattered was not wealth, status, or power. It was this: a kind heart had entered a proud house and changed everyone inside it forever.